welcome to High Heels and Skyscrapers. So in Germany we call it High Heels and Hochhäuser, of course. So it's such a pleasure to have Nick here. I waited for this moment so long, I think about more than 5 years or something. And because of that I wear this now because it's a merchandising for you. So please, Nick, introduce yourself.
I will, Sonia, thank you. Well, I'm Nick Hughes. Sonia and I met when I was working for Segro, which is a real estate business headquartered in the UK, but with offices in Germany. And Segro in Germany uses PB3C and has done for many years. So we met that way. And yeah, you're referring, I think, 5 years ago since we started talking or arguing about podcasts, I think. But look where I am.
Yeah.
I'm doing a podcast with you, Sonia. So
and a video podcast.
A video, yeah, I know. So maybe I was wrong about podcasts. Here I am. And thank you for having me.
Today we are not talking about podcasts. We are talking about brands. Why?
Well, brand is really what I do, Sonia. My role at Segro, as you know, was Director of Marketing and Comms, but in reality it's controlling the brand, the narrative, the storytelling and how it's perceived in terms of its position and purpose, etc. Since I left Segro 2 years ago, I set up as a consultant, Nick Hughes Consulting specifically, and I have 2 years under my belt. The last year, 2024, I jumped straight out of the frying pan into the fire because I went and helped consult a British company called Gerald Eve, which is a real estate, 100-year-old surveying firm. And they'd been bought by an American company called Newmark. Now, Newmark is out of New York. It's very transactional, very sort of cap markets based. They're the sister company to Cantor Fitzgerald. So you can imagine what sort of culture that breeds. Gerald Eve, by contrast, very consultative by nature, very nice, very sort of classically old English. So that's a very different culture. And my role was to integrate the two brands together. And it was fascinating work. And it took me, I mean, it was a 13-month gig. And in the end of January this year, the Gerald Eve name was retired and they all became Newmark. So, you know, it was great from a brand perspective, but it also allowed me to look at things such as organisational behaviour and cultural issues, because I think it's fair to say not everyone at Gerald Eve wanted to become Newmark, and they had to. So it was a journey, and I learned a lot, and hopefully they learned a lot, and hopefully they're all very comfortable being Newmark in the UK now. So that was last year, and then this year I've been consulting all over the place, which is fabulous. I'm still in real estate, but I do stuff outside of real estate. My specialism is B2B. I find B2B, it's where my pathway's taken me. And, you know, a lot of people look down on B2B. You know, if you have a B2C background, I think that's understandable because I think you know, you can understand consumers and consumer choices because we're all consumers. B2B is a little bit more esoteric. But actually branding in B2B, I think, is much more of a challenge, and it's much more important because B2C, you can get your product on shelf. You don't actually have to be that good at branding because you can get your product on shelf. You can't do that with B2B. And in a lot of B2B propositions, nothing is made, nothing is built, nothing is shown. It can be very often service-based. And so branding is incredibly important in B2B.
Of course, and Newmark entered also the German market.
Yes, I know. Yeah, last year as well.
They are very pushy, I think, in whole Europe.
Yeah, pushy. Yeah, I think I've heard other words. Yeah, I mean, it's to do with their culture, right? And I got a little taste of their culture. I spent a couple of days in New York with the Newmark sort of higher ups middle of last year. You know, they're incredibly driven. They've got sharp elbows. They're not ashamed of that. They've got their plan and they're going to go and get it. And that's how they operate. And culturally, that's very different to Brits. Brits are famously understated in some ways. We never say what we think. And that, you know, can be very misaligning with perhaps a more, if you like, a New York-based style of sort of naked aggression. So pushy, yeah, pushy. Possibly other words as well, yeah.
Yep, and what were the measures? What did you do? What are the brand measures to create a new culture? Or, in other words, it's a transformation.
It is a transformation. All you can do is put the ingredients together and hope the culture comes out perfectly. I mean, I'll answer that question in 5 years' time, because that's really when they'll have properly bedded down and created their own culture. It won't be a Gerald Eve culture, it won't be a Newmark US culture, it'll be a Newmark UK or a Newmark Europe culture. So all of these things have got to bed down.
But it's all about trust at the end.
I think a lot of it's about trust. And as we know, trust has to be earned. So that takes time in and of itself.
And what do you think are the hurdles in this process? Or
I think that was the main one in terms of there was a lack of trust, right? And that will take time. But then you've got processes, then you've got attitudes towards sales. I think that's a really key one. Where you have a business that's very consultative in nature, where you have a long-term relationship with your customer and you grow your revenues slowly by quarter, by year, quite often by decade, because you're in it for the long term. And then you have a new parent company that is very much about months and quarters and where are your sales. There's another disconnect between those two models. One is in America, and I think it's the same here. You have a brokerage culture,
yes,
which means that the house will get a small percentage, but you as an individual, if you make the deal, you'll take home most of it. In the UK, it's not like that. It's salary-based with a bonus, and the house gets most of the fees. So you can imagine that those 2 points breed very different cultures, and trying to bring those two things together is quite hard. So it's this, and that's really what I mean by a lack of trust, because you don't trust a system that you haven't been immersed in.
you talk about, for example, it's now Newmark as a brokerage, but you have a lot of consultancies like that in Germany, in other countries. But how you can differentiate it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you look at the brand positioning of broker houses or surveying firms, which is what they tend to get called in the UK, they're not overly strong. They don't take, in my opinion, they don't take very strong positions. And actually, being completely candid, I had very interesting conversations with the Newmark Group CMO when I was consulting with them last year, because I didn't really understand what the Newmark position was. I don't think there is an overt position. And so many of these brokerage houses will use the same type of language, and they just lack differentiation. They don't stand out. And actually, there's actually a Berliner called Van Rosdorf. Have you heard of Hedwig? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, I'm glad you have. Well, she was around in the last century, but her one of her theories was around being different leads to eyeballs. Simple as that. And actually, if you magnify that, that's really what position is. It's about differentiating yourself away from everything else. Brokerage houses are very commoditized. They pretty much all do what each other does. Yeah. There's no product to show for it. It's purely a service. And they might be in that market and they might do it in that geography, but broadly, they all do the same thing. So how as a purchaser of those services do you differentiate? It's very hard to know. And it comes down really to personality. That's how they're winning and losing at the moment, which is why the bigger fee earners tend to get bought up, which is why Newmark have come into Germany and the UK, and they're buying the biggest fee earners. In my opinion, that's not a sustainable strategy. And in my opinion, I think they need to spend more time and more efforts differentiating themselves as a brand, creating position that leads that von Rosdorf effect of standing out, because the visibility of what you do looks very different to what everyone else does.
So I know JLL, they are look more serious, and I think others are more friendly and more, I don't know, like me, more like... Wie bin ich denn?
Locker, easy.
Yeah, more easy like me. So it's about the people or it's about messages?
Is it about the people or is it about the messages? Well, I think those two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. It can be the people and the messages. I think in marketing, particularly in the service industry, you can start to talk about functional benefits of what you do as opposed to emotional benefits of what you do. And that can relate to brokerage, right? So they will almost all of them will start to talk about their functional benefits. Use JLL, use CBRE. There's
workplaces.
Exactly, right? And the language is awful, right? If you start talking about the emotional benefits, you're kind of market orientating yourself. So you're reaching out, you're understanding the pain points of your customer or client. You're also understanding how you can bring revenues and grow their businesses too. You know, what gets forgotten a lot in real estate, and you and I have talked about this many times, is how the human mind processes information. So Kahneman, System 1, System 2. And so much of the language we see in real estate marketing and pretty much in B2B marketing doesn't take System 1 and System 2 into account. In other words, what you're trying to achieve is to get your brand into System 1 so there is a cognitive ease that you understand that brand, and if you do, you're generally going to feel that that person is positive towards your brand. And if that's the case, you can influence them as a consequence. But a lot of brands don't do that. They witter on, they use the same type of language, it's quite technical language, they don't take account of the fact that we're all human beings and actually we want to make things easy, they want to complicate. It's a brilliant tool called Hemingway Editor. Do you know Hemingway Editor? So it's been out for a few years. It's effectively a website, and what you do is when you've written some copy, you put it into Hemingway Editor and it will give you a score. And funnily enough, the age score, the lower the age score, the better. Now, the Financial Times in the UK, which is the daily business paper in the UK, highly respected, their journalists, I believe, have to hit something like a age 16 or lower score. Now, they're writing about business and they're writing very technical stuff. It's an incredible skill to put it in and achieve a Hemingway Editor score of 16 or less. If you copied and pasted the home pages of surveying firms, broker houses, I suspect you get postgraduate because they're talking technical stuff all the time. And we switch off. Whether we understand that business or not, we switch off. It doesn't really mean anything to me. It's not going into System 1. You're not making it easy for me. I have no cognitive ease of your brand. You all look the same. You're not differentiated. So I'm just going to walk away. Thank you very much.
Now I'm afraid of... I have to use this tool, but I'm afraid of it. Maybe my texts are so bad so that my score isn't low enough.
Well, you'll find out tomorrow, Sonia, when you go and play with it. And funnily enough, I consulted this year for a business called Utility Aid, which is in the energy broking world, which it's the chief exec is an old business school friend of mine. So I've known him a long time and he brought me in and it's been fascinating. I've loved it. I don't know anything about the industry. I know I'm 6-7 months into it. I know a little bit now, but really not much. And one of the key things that business Utility Aid needed was a start again website, because what they had was awful. It was System 2 language. It was technical. It was probably postgraduate on Hemingway score. And I thought, right, well, we need to reach out. We need to make this incredibly easy for our stakeholders to understand us. And by doing so, we can start to differentiate because they start to get a feel of who we are. So I actually used a British copywriter who's based in Berlin. A brilliant guy called Steph Macbeth. And I said to Steph, I'm challenging you on Hemingway Editor that you have to get they also do like good and great and poor and everything. I said you have to get Hemingway Editor good when you write the website, which is a real challenge for a B2B proposition, and he did that. They're the same, aren't they? They are the same. I mean, it's really interesting. There was I think there was a piece from McKinsey, a piece of research from McKinsey that came out last week. Did you see that?
No.
Okay, so they interviewed 500 CMOs. I think it was in Germany, UK, Italy, Spain, and France. And God bless McKinsey. I mean, I've worked with McKinsey at Segro. Can't say I enjoyed the process, but their headline was "Brand is back," and it's, you know, they've got a lot of criticism for that because, you know, people like me say brand never went away. Brand is the most important thing, but brand is correlated very strongly with behavioural sciences, in my opinion. You know, you're influencing people to do things, taking decisions that suit you. But what was really interesting in that piece of research is these 500 CMOs have asked to rank lots of things, order of importance, and brand is now the most important thing for CMOs. In my opinion, it always was, and always should be. The fourth thing was quite interesting, was authenticity. So between 1 and 4, 2 and 3, I think, was something like budget control, which obviously every CMO has got to deal with, and data privacy. So again, a kind of boring stuff, but number 1 was brand, and number 4 was authenticity. And that is really, really important. Oh, by the way, generative AI was down in about 17th.
And now we are coming to AI because the point to be authentic and AI, I think it's very hard.
Yeah.
To make a fit, a match out of it.
I've heard so much rubbish spoken about AI in the last couple of years. But people seem to think as AI as one sort of absolute thing, right? And it's a bit like, you know, and so people ask you a question, is AI good for my business? That's like saying, you know, is a motor vehicle good for my business? Well, it can be, but it also might be a hindrance, right? So
shit in, shit out.
Sorry?
Shit in, shit out.
Shit in, shit out. Absolutely, yeah.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah, it's right. So my view on AI, and this is not my model, but this is a model I fundamentally agree with. It's an hourglass, right?
Yeah.
So up here you have, so if as a CMO, if you want to generate campaigns, generate ideas, you have the width at the top, right? And in that you pour as much information which AI can use, gather, and process.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the heavy lifting, time-consuming stuff that we as humans don't want to do, nor should we have to do, quite frankly, because it's a waste of money asking humans to do something when a decent LLM can do that very quickly, right? Then you pinch into the middle bit, which is where the humans take over, become creative, start to work out what they're being told, what the insights are, and that's where skills like storytelling and creativity take over, right? And then you go wide at the bottom again because you generate some outputs that need testing. So if you can use AI to test things, you are saving yourself a lot of time. So yeah, absolutely. From a CMO point of view, if you can sit and work with the right business, with the right LLM, it's absolutely fabulous from that point of view. However, what is happening is so many people in marketing are using AI in all the wrong areas. And
you can see it. Have a look at LinkedIn.
Funnily enough, I was saying to Daniel behind the camera exactly that point. I look at LinkedIn every day. I pull my hair out because people are using LinkedIn's AI to generate posts, and it's doing the opposite of what they want to achieve.
Yes, you know, you're so right. Oh, it hurts me a lot because I wrote a book about to be authentic on LinkedIn, and for me, it's so hard to see it every day.
Right, we can spot it.
It's
right?
obviously
we can spot
LinkedIn is obviously the hotspot of AI.
Can I tell you how this relates to nature? Because this is quite an important point, actually. There's a book called Deceit and Self-Deception, written by Robert Trivers. Have you?
I heard about it. Yeah.
Okay, amazing book. In this book, one passage that really stands out for me, Trivers talks about wasps, or Vespa in German, right? Yeah. So when wasps fight, they face to face like this, okay? And they have a patch on their face, which is, the more aggressive and assertive a wasp is, it'll have a bigger patch of melanin on its face. And so when a wasp will go face to face with another wasp with a big melanin patch on, it's called, I think the area of the face is called the clypeus, right? They'll go, well, not fighting that one, he's going to kill me. So they fly away. So scientists thought, well, let's try an experiment. And they painted on bigger cleopuses, right? Yeah. On wasps that weren't necessarily aggressive, thinking that as soon as another wasp would come face to face and see this enormous thing, they go, well, he's scary, I'll fly away. But they don't. They get attacked. They get attacked more, actually, because what they're doing is they're flying with incongruity. Their face is saying something, but their body language is saying something else, right? So there's an inauthenticity to what they're doing, and they get attacked. And that's how I feel about AI. I want to attack anything where I think it's inauthentic.
Yeah.
And actually, as a marketer, I'm going to swear because you already have, and that's fine by me. It's fucking lazy, right? It's fucking lazy just to use AI where you can't be bothered to write something. If you've run out of time, then you're not prioritizing the right things in your job. We as brand leaders, we are there to create brand architecture, narratives, messaging houses, positions and purposes, right? Which means that everything below that needs to be absolutely consistent and coherent so that your audiences, your stakeholders can understand who you are as a brand. And if you can't be bothered to write a piece of copy and you just want to farm it out to AI, then you don't deserve to work in the industry.
Yeah, it's all about to be authentic. I know it when it's the same when you see my posts on LinkedIn and you meet me in person. You say, oh, okay, that's Sonia.
Yeah.
That's truly Sonia. I have my style, I have my tonality, and I have everything. But
Sonia, how long have we known each other? About 8 years? Something like that?
8 years.
Yeah, you haven't changed. You are 100% consistent.
So,
Yeah.
in my language, in online, offline, in every cases, I'm always Sonia. And a lot of people, also CEOs, they lose it because they are not authentic. Yeah. And this, I think it's not good for the brand positioning as well. Because I think only 2% of the content on LinkedIn is company content. Yeah. The rest is all personal content. So you are a brand ambassador. And when you are only posting things like AI-generated nonsense bullshit content, then I think it's not good at the end for your company.
100% agree, yeah.
So, but what do you think is the future of AI in communication and in brand positioning?
I think
we are on the top now, or?
I think we've hopefully, and maybe that McKinsey report is testament that we're over this sort of bubble of using it in all the wrong places, not having a strategy on it, being scared of it. It's like, this is a great tool if you use it wisely. So use it in all the right places. As I said, the hourglass model is the one that I would always want. I don't think it will ever interfere with human intelligence. You know, let us do storytelling. It might catch up, it might be good enough to do that, but God forbid, because I think that's really where we need human common sense to storytell.
I think in around 1 or 2 years, it's always the same. It goes on the top and then it goes down. Yeah. And then it's balanced. I think it will be balanced in some years. So
I would think so. I would think there's sort of parallels really with everyone wanting a corporate website in 1997. And so, well, if you've got a website, you're going to have an amazing business. Well, no, you're not. And that, that obviously settled down, and it'll settle down with AI. But, coming back to my point, what is AI? It's so many things used in so many different ways.
Yeah. What tools do you use? What are your favorite AI tools? I like Perplexity, for example, sometimes, and of course ChatGPT.
I don't have a favourite because it'd be like having a favourite child. To my earlier point, I think you use what you should use that's specifically right for the task in hand. We're working with this energy broking company, Utility Aid. We're working with bit of an AI startup, actually, a guy who I've known for quite some time. I used to work with at Knight Frank, actually. And they've got a very interesting proposition. So we're going to be working with them because part of what that business does is telesales, which is the most awful job in the world because you are literally just phoning people and being told to go away on a regular basis. And that business has got a petabyte's worth of data because it's recorded about 5 years worth of every telephone call and the transcript to go with it. And so what we've said to this company is, we will give you this data, it will fill your data lake, and you tell us what the best conversations are. What should we be talking about? What should the telesales team be talking about? Because human nature would dictate that.
It's more a social listening tool or what?
No, it's an intelligence tool. So if I was a telesales person and 4 hours ago I made a sale, I would remember that phone call and think, what did I do then? What did I say then? And then you'd have a sort of confirmation bias that whatever you use then, you keep using because you just remember the last success, but actually it's not working. However, with a petabyte's worth of information, they can look at all the insights across literally 5 years of sales calls and work out what the best things to talk about are, and tone of voice, et cetera, et cetera. So we're about 1 month into a 5-month process on this, but it's going to be a game changer for that business because the win ratio will go up. It should double in terms of success. So yeah.
Crazy. But what do you think about AI agents? I think this is the next story. First was ChatGPT, and now everybody is talking about AI agents. Is this the future? But it's not, to be honest, it's not persons, no really brand ambassadors. It's more like it's a machine.
Well, yeah, I mean, AI bots have been around for a while, haven't they? I mean, it's quite exciting in one way that, the small boy inside me who liked to watch science fiction films, this is kind of, we're living with that as reality now, and it's coming increasingly quicker down the track. So, I don't know, it'll be interesting.
And at the end of our podcast, one question: how do consumers react when they realize you are only talking via AI to them? In B2B, what do you think? Will they dismiss a brand, or what they do? They recognize it and then, okay, but I will also working with the company in the next years?
I would think they do what most people do, which you feel duped. You feel that you've been deceived, because that's how I feel if I have been talking either with a bot online or on a phone call, because you are not having that real, authentic experience. Now, that's where we are today. A year or two down the line, it could be different in terms of it could be so good you'll never know.
What are your wishes for the next years? What should companies do?
Well, I think coming back to the McKinsey report, right? So brand is back according to McKinsey. Brand never went away, obviously, but I like the fact that there is a focus on brand. There's a focus on being real. There's a focus on being personable and authentic. I think those things are really, really important. We are in a very worrying time as a planet. We've got a lot of conflict. We've got a lot of division. We've got technology that can exacerbate that way worse. And more than that, in the business world, I don't know how much you know about the sort of brain structures, but we're living in a left hemisphere dominated world at the moment. There's a brilliant book on this. There's a kind of seminal book on this called The Master and His Emissary. It's written by Professor Ian Gilchrist, who's a British scientist. And it talks about the two different functions of the brain, but basically the left hemisphere, which he would call as the emissary, it is very black and white. It's very results focused. It's very two-dimensional. So people who are left brain dominated, who can't use their right hemisphere, will draw pictures of flowers in 2D. Conversely, the right hemisphere, which is about betweenness and creativity and nuance, will draw pictures of flowers in 3D. So we are living in an era that's dominated by the left hemisphere. And you can see that through art, architecture, advertising, all facets of marketing. And it worries me that we are so geared towards that if you think about advertising, it's all been about performance advertising, performance marketing, not brand building. So I'm quite encouraged to see that McKinsey are talking about brand is back, because actually if we can be more right hemisphere dominated, and that's a big if, by the way, because the boardrooms in Germany, in the UK, in all Western countries are going to be dominated by people with left hemisphere bias. And there'll be financiers, and there'll be accountants, and there'll be other kind of professionals. There won't be too many marketers. There are very few CMOs who sit in the boardrooms, especially in B2B businesses. So the voice of the consumer, the voice of the client is often not heard because they're focusing on a spreadsheet.
And when you have not a strong brand, every lead campaign on LinkedIn will fail. Yeah, because you're always, when you make the click and then you recognize the brand has no value, no trust, nothing. Exactly. So you will not buy it, or I don't know. So I think brand building and performance is a match, but you need the brand first and not first sale and then brand. So it makes no sense.
Exactly that. Exactly. It's chicken and egg. So funnily enough, I feel very blessed to work with Utility Aid. But as I mentioned, the chief exec I went to business school with. So we've known each other a long time. But one of the things I did earlier this year was to sell into him the concept of a brand campaign, which I had to explain what a brand campaign was. And he, because he's a really super intelligent guy, gets it. And he said, okay, we need to build the brand. Using a brand campaign is fine. But for a lot of CMOs, that is a really tough gig. And it shouldn't be, but it is. To sit down with a chief exec and a CFO and say, right, I want you to invest this amount of money. It's a serious amount of money. Yeah, we're going to have a brand campaign. And they'll say, well, what's the ROI? Yeah. What are you going to do?
It's the first question always.
What's it going to do to my next quarter and the quarter after that? Well, nothing. I can't tell you if it works for another 5 years. Right? And that's quite a hard sell. And it's very easy for the CEO and CFO to sling your hook, get out of my room. I'm not interested. But actually, the more enlightened bosses will understand that brands, and this is a great piece of work in Harvard Business Review by Lodish and Meller called questioning if brands are built over decades, why are they measured over quarters? And it's absolutely true. You need to build your brand over years. And that's really, really important. To your point just there, Sonia, so that when you do click to buy something, you have a built brand. You have that experience. You're in system one of your stakeholders' mind. And that's what you want. And you can't do that by trying to do things on a performance basis on a quarter.
No, it makes no sense. It's the same. There are people coming to me and say, I want to be an influencer on LinkedIn. So I said, you cannot buy it. You have to build up your brand. It's also to build up a brand. It's the same. I started, for me as a person and for my company as well, I started LinkedIn 3 years ago. And I needed 3 years to have these. It's not only about click rates, likes, etc. It's about the engagement rate. Now people are commenting, they are sharing my content, but this is the next level. I needed a long time to build up my brand, to say, okay, I'm the person for communication and networking, and it's a small part. I'm not talking about real estate. I'm talking about communication, because I'm not a real estate expert, but I can talk about my customers and about positioning, about LinkedIn. So, but it needs. I tried it for 3 years, and it was a lot of experimentation. And now I think I'm Sonia now, but it took a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So it was so great. So branding, it's all about branding, of course, Nick. Yeah. Now I got it, and I was so nervous because we had talked so long about this podcast, and now a dream comes true.
We've lived the dream, Sonia.
We lived the dream, and now we are going for a beer.
I think we've earned it.
I
Yeah.
think so too.